Well, good evening and welcome to the Oasis Podcast. I am John Mark Yoder. I'm here with Wayne Weaver, and tonight we are having another chat about a very important topic. Anyway, just a reminder as you've tuned in, if you like what you're seeing tonight, please hit the like button. We would even like if you would share this podcast with others if it's helpful. And just a reminder to subscribe to this channel to get notifications when we go live. And one last thing, please send us your comments to library@oasistabernacle.org. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you to those who have sent in responses. It's always great to read what's on your hearts. Well, Wayne, there's a lot going on in the world today. Today was just a very busy day in the news and all of that. But I've been watching. Do you ever watch the British royal family? Do you ever keep up with any of that?
No, not really. I mean, I know what's, with the cancer issue, Kate Middleton, and London Bridge is falling down.
Yeah, well,
overnight.
Baltimore Bridge is falling down. Yeah, that's it. But I never really followed the British royal family until I married a Canadian, and of course the British royal family is also the royal family of Canada. But I've been really intrigued with all that's been happening with this whole cancer thing for Catherine, Princess of Wales, and the interesting thing about that is there was so much out there. I mean, some really nasty stuff being said over the last while, and then when Catherine came out and had her short video statement of what's been going on, now a lot of these people who have been saying these things are kind of left with this: how do we apologize for this, or do we apologize, or what should we do? And some of them are really. It's just kind of like, well, you shouldn't. You just should have just been quiet, not said anything. Right. Others have been. It seemed like they took some responsibility, but that's not really been a conflict. But it's been things where people have said hurtful things. Tonight, we want to talk about resolving conflict. At least to some degree, talk about that. There's a lot that goes into that. So in 30, 40 minutes, we're not going to cover the topic extensively, but we do want to talk about that because I think we have conflicts among friends. We have conflicts at times in our families. You and I have counseled a lot of couples that have had conflicts.
Normally it's about that.
Yeah. Sometimes there are conflicts with siblings. I remember back in the day, early days of pastoring, where we had folks that would come to our church from another church, and they'd settle in, and they were all, this church is just wonderful. And about 6 months in, you discover that they want you now to go talk to somebody, a sibling or somebody in another church who owes them money or something like that. So conflicts happen all over. And then, of course, just those conflicts in church that can leave long-lasting scars. And you're no stranger to those. You've seen those over the years. But I guess we want to talk tonight about what should a Christian do? How should we resolve conflict? Many times people say, well, man, this kind of thing shouldn't happen in the church. Conflict shouldn't exist. That's not for the people of God. And then they glibly go on, throwing punches and sending emails. And, the greatest was the unsigned letters in mailboxes at church. Those are big things. But resolving conflict essentially is taking responsibility. If you want to resolve it, you're going to have to take responsibility for your contribution to it. It's going to involve humility as others come and ask for forgiveness. It takes humility to make a good apology. We want to talk about a few of those things, but I wanted to start off tonight with just several verses out of Scripture. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says this: "Whether therefore ye eat or drink, or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God." And I think in conflict, one of the first things we want to do is ask the question, what would please and honor God most in this? How can I glorify God? For a Christian. The other one then is Matthew 7:3-5, and this is where Jesus has this great gift for I don't know, overstating. He never overstates something, but it's just this little exaggeration that gets the point across. And he says, "Why beholdest thou the mote or the splinter that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast the mote out of thy brother's eye." So that's kind of a second principle is take care of, get the log out of your eye before trying to deal with your brother, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, I've got a couple of questions for you tonight, and I thought maybe, and you will probably have some nuance to speak to this as well, but how should a Christian respond to offenses? Depends what it is, right?
Yeah, it does, yeah. Is it legit?
Yeah.
The offense is legit. Or is it just, here's the thing. I'm not sure how to answer some of this, but do I have experience with this? Oh, my goodness, yeah. I have a lot of experience in this. You have, if you're a master of many things, you'll have to learn to deal with those things, as far as conflict from business to church through everything. And I know that I am well experienced with all of the above, but I don't know that I've found a pathway that I can necessarily recommend, but we can talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's good. So when we look at this, let's just say, what are some of the typical offenses or conflicts that you have encountered in the church? Maybe your own life, or just out of experience, some of the things that you have seen. Well, you've seen it in church, business, in personal life. Yeah. What are a couple of things that Christians can probably expect to experience in any one of those fields?
Well, one of the things that I have observed down through the years, in which you covered it with that verse, that's why Jesus said it right away. Take the beam out of your eye. Because people that cause offenses or take offenses normally have a big issue. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. Just the other day, somebody said something nasty about me. He should look at himself. Even his own family had to take his wife away from him because he was so not kind to her, mm-hmm. and it was awful what he was doing. And their own children came and took the wife away, the mother away from the dad, because he was not, he was, may I say, maybe nasty. And it was hopeless what was happening. And some would say it was abuse or abusive. Well, in that case, that's a beam. Then don't throw darts at something else. Mm-hmm. If you have an issue, don't throw arrows. And I find in most cases in my own life, when somebody really threw some things, they had issues. I saw them. I saw right away. And so what they're trying to do is divert your attention and somehow justify themselves. You name it. You just name it. It's the way it is.
So how do you deal with the offenses that come from a Beamer?
There you go. Buy a Mercedes.
Exactly. No, but I'm just thinking about this.
Well, my thing is just in something like this. There's another man that I'm thinking of right now. He's a preacher. He's actually a bishop. And he is, he has a thorough dislike for me. Mm-hmm. But he's on meds constantly. He's on medication, him and his wife both, because they basically can't get along with each other. You think of that, then don't criticize someone else. You see what I mean? That's the beam. Mm-hmm. Make sure your own life is in order before you throw things at others. You can see some things maybe and just say some fun stuff, but not things to cause someone a lot of heartache. And so I think that problem is the problem within. Mm-hmm. I really do. If you truly see another person that is maybe worthy of a little bit of blame or something, to me it causes a burden. It causes a burden. It doesn't cause me to go and throw things at him and make him look even worse. I just don't understand. I think I think when you do that, you're just exposing your own beam.
So that's one situation
Seriously.
where somebody is picking and whatever. But when you have a disagreement, say you have two employees
Yeah.
that have a difficult time getting along.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've run into that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell how should a Christian employee work out the differences with a fellow employee?
Well, I think in business that's easy. Church, it's not. In business, you can just sit them down and reason with them, and normally it is resolved. But in church, it's not. For
So
some
employees
reason,
are more reasonable than church
absolutely.
members?
Oh, absolutely. No question. Yeah,
And what happens if you have a church member that's also an employee?
Well, we do have that too, but I don't know that is that I've run into the problems with it that way. Number one is pastors need to teach them.
Yeah.
But no, you can take employees. I mean, yeah, there's strife between them for a while, and then they kind of resolve and they go on, and because it's their income, it's like you have to get along if you want your job here.
There's some motivation
Yeah,
there
there
that comes
is.
with that. In
Right.
church, it
Church
becomes
is different.
it becomes a different thing.
Yeah.
I think the level too of conflict in the church happens out of a level of pain that comes from our level of expectation. We actually expect
be,
that
yeah.
people should treat us better in the church than we do outside, and so we tend to think they should be understanding.
Yeah.
And really give me the preference
Yeah.
in what I want, right?
Now, one thing is, I don't know that we have much of that here at all. We used to, and we used to have quite a lot of that. But for some reason, it was it was always amongst the same people.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's the same issue remained, and whether this person was against that person, or even me. That was the person that was always against somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That was the person who was always finding fault in other people. Well, there's a beam. There's a beam.
One
Look
of
at
the things
yourself.
about that, and that's what's so important too, I think, is taking responsibility
Yeah.
for what you have contributed.
Exactly. That's the resolve. It
yeah.
really is.
If you can take responsibility for what you have contributed into a conflict by pain. I came across a statement a while back that you might be only 2% responsible for the conflict, but you're 100% responsible for the 2%. We often try to write that off because there's 98% on there. So what's 2%? But I think for us as Christians, there's always a responsibility to deal well with the 2% that we contributed. Did we backbite? Did we? Yeah. If we contributed to that conflict, we have a responsibility, whether it was more or less. I think we tend to write ourselves a blank check when their contribution is a lot higher. But Jesus was saying, the beam in your eye, it's a beam. You think it's small. You think you've got the moat, and you think they've got the beam, but he flips it around and says, until you can get that out of your eye, you probably aren't seeing clearly. That's what he says, right? You'll see clearly to cast the mote out of your brother's eye once you get the beam out.
Yeah, but then there's no issue. Yeah, then there's no issue. If the beam is out, then what's a splinter?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little pain. But the problem is, in most cases that I have viewed this or understood it, there's competition in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, then that competition has to somehow be won by degrading or making somebody lower, or somehow just taking somebody down. And it's pretty much always competition.
Conflicts come from a clash of wills and egos, right?
It does. It really does.
Wow.
And it stinks.
So what is a proper way to take responsibility in a conflict?
Well, here's another problem. I've had numerous people down through the years, and finally I just said, don't come apologize to me, because you hurt me more than anything. People come in and they say, hey, I'm so sorry I had bad feelings about you. Well, that's not an apology.
Mm-hmm.
That is just an insult to a wound. And that's not an apology. You're not freeing yourself. You're if I come to you, John, and say that, John, I'm sorry, I've had a bad attitude about you. And
Well, you know what I just heard?
I was offended. What is that?
I just heard that I did something that's really offended you, and you caused a bad attitude. So your bad attitude was actually my fault.
Yeah. Well, see, there you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I heard. You're telling me that you had a bad attitude, and it's actually my fault that you had it.
Yeah.
You're sorry you had it, but I caused it, so it's my fault.
There you
right?
go. There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, that is a prime example of someone that is truly not sorry about their offense.
Right.
You know, they're just trying to, sometimes maybe under pressure, and they feel they should say something because there's pressure on them. Other people know that they've said certain things, so they need to respond somehow. For instance, this is what happened with the prince, or the princess, is, you know, she was kind of in hiding, and so the word came out that she had an affair. No, that he had, William had an affair.
Prince William, yeah.
Yeah, had an affair, and all this and all that, and they start building a case. And all at once it got unveiled. She came out and very humbly and graciously said that she has cancer. And now what happens? See, now they're uncomfortable. They know that they messed up, and so there's pressure on them. So this is where many Christians can't do the right thing and just humble themselves and say, you know, I have a problem, and I'm sorry I violated this again. I did something, and I carried some things in my heart that were absolutely wrong, and it's all my fault. I am the problem.
Mm-hmm. And
you never cast it on someone. I think the latest person that apologized to me was several years ago. Somebody that's no more at Oasis. Can you expect? And just out of the blue, one day caught me in church and said that, hey, I just want to apologize. I had some bad attitude towards you, and left me sit right there. So now what am I supposed to say? So what did I do? See, that's what happens, and that's not resolve.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I apologize for something that leaves the person I'm apologizing to in question, and it actually insults him or her and hurts her even deeper. When you are truly sorry, you take the blame. It's not the other person. When the beam is the problem, the beam is the problem.
Right. And I think there are times, too, with those things that, an apology is frightfully easy to mess up.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, you can make a bad one very easy.
Not if you're sorry.
Not if you're sorry.
No.
But even at times, people stumble over that.
It can. But when you're truly sorry and really, really sorry for what you just did, that comes right through the vibes of the whole thing.
Right, it does.
There's no fingers pointing.
Mm-hmm.
But
a lot of times the apology comes with if I have offended you, or if I have hurt you, or however
the word
I have
"if"
hurt
means
you.
I didn't.
Right.
But you took offense, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry you were so sensitive.
Yeah, I'm so sorry you were so sensitive. That is so not an apology. That is
I think it doesn't touch the pain.
No.
It doesn't acknowledge that I have actually hurt you.
Yeah.
What it's saying is, I know you're hurt. I think it's your problem.
Yeah.
And it certainly isn't mine, but I know you're blaming me, so I need to get that off my chest.
Yeah. See, the bigger picture of this is we can be like little children in a bad way, and just back and forth and biting here and there and like that when we disagree, and then go on and then again do the same thing. Or we can grow up and be grown-ups. But the pain that I think is important to mention here is not the pain of my emotions getting hurt. I got hurt and it kind of pulled the carpet out from underneath me. But no, when the pain that I have seen, that I have deeply, deeply experienced is it has put something in me that I cannot live I can't go on like this. I just can't. If I am really this bad and don't see myself for what I was accused of, and what it does, it just knocks everything out of you,
mm-hmm.
and you don't want to preach, you don't want to do anything, because you're just not sure. That is satanic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind that I've received, may I say, a lot of in my life.
It's the accuser of the brethren syndrome,
It is the accuser
right?
of the
mm-hmm.
brethren, and what it does, it it just knocks you completely. It's not even that. It takes any confidence that you have and totally dissolves it. And you have to have a certain sense of confidence to at least do something in leadership. Another thing that really has been very difficult for me is if I know somebody did something and said something or even did something. There's people that say something around your back, but then there's people that do things obviously the enemy was using them to do things and just absolutely disrespect and disregard a person. Especially the Bible talks about a double honor for that should be in as far as a leader.
For the
Mm-hmm. And you hear that somebody pulled one off, and I know all about it. I saw the whole thing. I know all about it. I was told it. I know exactly what happened. And they never make that right. I'm presently even walking in that, even now. Things that happened some years ago that I full well know. I know exactly what happened. I even know a statement that was made after it was done. This is not a small thing what happened. And now for me to build up confidence in people like that, I can't.
It's difficult. There's no way to do it.
Because I know they're hiding
foundation.
something from me, and they're not wanting to address it, and they should because they really violated something. They totally violated my trust, hoping I would never find out, and I knew it the next day. So that's often what I tell people like this, that when you're called in to the work of a prophet, just don't try to hide things from him because he'll find out. That's just something about it. It's not that even the Lord shows you, and there's times, but there is people. They'll speak into that prophet's ear and inform you of some things. And I've noticed that all my life, not all my life, but all my Spirit-baptized life, when I have had some of those gifts working in me, and I go on as though I know nothing about it, know everything. I even know details, and I know, I could go on and on. That can be a bit difficult for me. Now, that's the type of pain then that can wound a leader, or it can wound a mom in the home or a father in the home, where maybe the wife or the husband will say or do things behind the back and never owe up to it. And if you know that, say for instance, my wife would go out and just really tell people how bad a person I am and all this and all that. And I know she doesn't think that way of me, but if I would have problems, that she would just go and express it. But then to my face is, I really love you, honey, I really love you. See, I can't trust that because I know what you're doing. And there's people that do that. There's people that expect the love of their partner, but then they continue to do this and tell everybody about that's a whole other thing, John. This is a big field to talk about, but if a husband and wife have issues, you don't go and tell everyone. You might want to confide in a person, but don't confide in everyone because you're putting that person down. And it's those people then that you just like drain their spiritual life from them too.
Well, and there is something that happens with that. I call it picking up an offense for somebody else. But when a husband or wife goes and tells all of these things to everybody, what happens is people that have a compassionate heart will take up an offense and think that's terrible. They will be hurt as well by what is reportedly done. Yeah. Well, then the husband and wife make up and they keep going. But this person over here has got this thing. They don't know what to deal with. Yeah, it's just where do I go with this? It's caused a wound that wasn't even done to them. And we got to be careful with that. When we spread gossip, when we spread rumors, those things take conflict out. Yeah, I think those are very key.
They are. But then to go back and make things right. I think if I did something wrong to somebody, I need to go and tell that person.
So how do you do that?
Just go. That's what I did. Well, one of the first things I did when I was baptized with the Holy Spirit is... Actually, before that, when I truly found repentance, I went back. I went to the IRS. I went to the tax people. I paid everything up. I told them what I did. I just took it all on me. And
So
I
restitution,
thought,
you took
yeah, I did.
responsibility for the wrongs.
Full restitution. And that's a big thing to talk about. Restitution is required. Just because you did something very bad against a person and now you don't do it anymore does not fix the problem that what you did that stands against you. And and what can I say? I mean, people just don't see that. People just don't see that. And there's people down through the years, and John, there's oh my goodness, I could talk a lot about this.
Restitution is something that we don't often hear about in terms of making things right.
May I say this is something that rarely happened, that people made restitution to me.
To you.
Yeah, very rarely. I could count on two hands easy.
And restitution, for those who may not understand what that is when you have taken something or done something that is either damaged or stolen, and it's within your power to take that back and reinstate that, resupply it. In the Bible, if you stole a person's sheep and you were caught, you had to pay back 4 or something like that. There was but restitution is repaying what the wrong, restoring
at regardless of whatever cost that is.
Right.
And I think I can say that there's only one person that I have ever encountered that has done it completely right, and did it in front of a whole audience, and it was tremendous. It was blisteringly humiliating to him, and it cost him a lot. It could have cost him everything by just doing that, and that's the best restitution I have ever seen anyone make. And but if I can just say it, people think that, well, if you put some distance between it, this is something that happened 10 years ago, I don't think he'll remember it anymore. That's not the point.
Right.
If you did something wrong, and if you tried to destroy someone, you've got to go back and fix that. You have to.
Years ago, there was a chaplain back in Kosciuszko County in Indiana, and he told me his story. And when he got saved, he had done a ton of things around the community and whatever. I mean, a gate from here and a thing from there and whatever else. But when he got saved, the Spirit of God pressed on him deeply to go back and pay for these things and even damage mailboxes when he was still in high school and doing stuff like that. But he went back to everybody that he could find, that until he was clean.
I did something once that I felt guilty of, and I didn't know how to do this. Didn't know for sure. I didn't even know the man. Had to do with an accident that I didn't cause. He caused it. But I felt that he overpaid me a little bit. I honestly think he didn't pay me enough, but he felt, may I say it this way, he felt he paid too much, but the damage it did was actually underpaid. So I decided I'm going to satisfy his conscience on that. And he felt that he paid me $500 too much, or it was actually $250. So what I did is I went to the place where he lives, and I decided not to face him. Sometimes that's not advised, and we should talk about that. And I went and stuck $500 in an envelope and put it in his mailbox, and didn't say who it was from or anything, and just left it there. And and this was when I didn't have $500. This was years ago. But I felt that I need to, if he didn't feel that I was using him right in this, it was an insurance settlement. And he damaged a brand new car, big time. Yeah, it was a lot of damage, but he felt it was overcharged.
But you look at what you did there. You look at how God has blessed you today. Those are some things that clear the way for the blessing of God to come on your life. Taking care of those things. Now, in approaching people, there are times when making an apology, God lays it on our hearts. There are times when we need to take care of some things. But again, there are situations where it's not always advised. What are some of those?
When you ask me that question again, because when you were starting, my mind went back to another place. years ago, I had bought a business from a man, and with the business, I had certain rights, hauling rights, and I did that. And so, anyways, and all at once, this other man, a Christian man, decided he would like to, basically, he tried to rob me from that, and he did, by hauling for a lot less. And I had a contract signed and everything. I paid for this. And so his wife, I just said, you can't. I mean, this is between the Lord and I. This can't happen. I can't afford this. I bought the business having the hauling rights for that man, and he had agreed to it that I may have all his hauling and so forth. And then what happened is I just, God, what do I do here? Anyways, his wife came by and said that we cannot do this. We know this is not using you right. This is cheating, and this is not our right to do this. And said we decided to not go with the and stealing it from me. And then a day later, all at once he drops by, gives me a call, and he says, "Nope, we changed our mind. We're going to go on with it." And that was it. I never had any more hauling. But that man, to this day, has not done well financially. And I would like to tell him that's the very reason. But it's always a struggle. That's him. And I see his truck. He still has one truck. It's beat up. And he wonders what in the world is going on. And there's another one that owed me a bunch of money, and he is, I can go on down the line. There's another one that, John, you get started in this. I forget some of these stories.
Well, maybe we have to pick a different topic.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, just people that owe things to me that never made it right. Now, and we shouldn't maybe even be talking about that. But people that owe us money. I once sold a semi to a person and I never got paid for.
How do you sell that? You must have given that one away. Oh, yeah.
Well, no, but yeah, I gave it away. Yeah, and I sold it and gave him the title and everything, and the check bounced. So, and that's the way that went. And so I go back to it. Well, these are all Christian people. So what do I do? Anyway, that's the way it stands today. But both of them are not alive anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's just that. But the thing that I think hurts even deeper is when people deal and try to inflict you with rumors and bad-mouthing a person, especially for God's people, even though we can kind of expect that because, if you love the Lord, you're going to have to, not everyone's going to like that, and the devil won't like it either. That is a more sensitive. I can see it from the world's perspective. And I remember saying that the world is actually, I found why Jesus said that he lived with the sinners, because they wouldn't accuse him. They found no fault in him. It was the Pharisees that found fault. Mm-hmm. The world didn't find fault. And I remember seeing that the time when I went through really deep things of rejection from religious people, that the world didn't act that way. They were friendly to me. And I remember saying to my wife, I now know what it is why Jesus hung around the sinners, because they wouldn't accuse him. And I saw that. But it's the self-righteousness and I don't know, it's just the churchy stuff that people carry with them that if they don't like someone, they're just, okay, then will not like you. I just don't get the immaturity of that.
It's one of those things that I believe sometimes the work of regeneration maybe isn't quite complete. In saying this, I would like to ask you again on that question I'd asked you earlier, and then I would like to finish up with a couple of verses about forgiveness and sort of wrap up there. Yeah. But in going back and speaking to people, making restitution or making apology, sometimes it's not advisable to go in person. Right. Most times it is, but there are times when a letter or even an intermediary would be appropriate. So when are those situations?
Well, this is going to be on the air, so some people are going to just totally disagree with it. You find that especially in how should I say, activities that happen at a very young age between people, and I don't even know if I have the freedom to say it, but there's a lot of abuse in the world.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I come from
issues of abuse.
Well, I come from that kind of background where that was very much school stuff and things that were done, and and some of those I have seen in my life where they went back and apologized to a violation, and it just stirred things up quite dramatically. Where it happened twice, and I said, I'm just never going to ask people to do that again. Even if anything, do it in a letter, or you just do whatever needs to free your conscience. But in a time like that, I mean, I've had, just because of this being broadcast, that
we get the picture, I think, yeah. And so there are some times when a letter is more appropriate given the nature of what is being spoken about.
And sometimes also the willingness of you doing whatever it takes to make things right, that willingness to whatever it costs, whatever it does, if I have to give my home away, the Lord says, okay, I'm good with that. I've seen that. Now they rest. Mm-hmm. They're willing to. And because some of those things, some of these people are not living. Some of them are, say for instance, there's so many examples of that, and yet I'm so limited what I may say, because I remember I've dealt with people that were abused as children, and I was one of those people that was also abused. I could go right now after those people. That's not a proper way. I would never go back and tell them that, hey, I forgive you for what you did. No, I that is not necessary for me to do that. For what they did to me, it's not necessary for me to do that. If they would ever sense that they would be needing to come to me to talk, I probably wouldn't even recommend it. I just wouldn't. Make it right between you and God and keep me out of it. Kind of that way. And unless you've experienced what I have, it's probably hard to understand that. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you just kind of rile things up, and I hope those people even forgot about it on the other side of the blood of Christ, and would not even carry it on their shoulders. I don't hold it against them. Yeah, I wonder what my life would have been without all that.
And that does cause scars and wounds. But I would like to talk a little bit yet about forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Ephesians 4:31-32 says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. Mm-hmm. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you." Mm-hmm. And I think there's many times when people will come up to us. I remember having somebody come up to me one time years ago and say, "John, I forgive you." And I'm like, what's this?
So bad.
And this was back when I was still single, and I just remember a person coming up to me in church and saying this, and I was like, I said, well, praise the Lord. Oh, that's fine. That's good. And then they proceeded to tell me
what you did. Yeah.
And so the statement of "I forgive you" was
undone,
an introduction to an accusation.
Yeah.
And I think that when we forgive, there's two parts to that, I believe.
Yeah.
One is vertical, something we do with God. Mm-hmm. The other is an exchange with people. Mm-hmm. And we extend forgiveness verbally to somebody when they ask for it. We can do it between us and God towards them, and we don't need to tell them, because so often coming with a telling becomes an accusation rather than a release.
Yeah, it works just the other way. It's intended to hurt, and it does. You know, there's times, like for me, if somebody would tell me that, how can you forgive them if they never ask for forgiveness? People don't have to ask for forgiveness for you to free yourself from them. All right? If I can say it this way, John, if I've done something against you, all right? I've done something against you, And now, or let's reverse that. If you have done something against me, all right?
That'd probably be more likely.
No, I don't think so. We've learned good things in life, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
We're adults. But if you have done something against me, all right? And so what I do is I will not forgive him until he comes back and tells me, John, you come to me and you tell me that, hey, I'm so sorry I did something. Now I can't forgive you. No, see, until I forgive you, you've got your claws in me.
Mm-hmm.
Your claws, what you did, is causing pain. It stays that way.
I'm living rent-free in your head.
Exactly right, yeah. But so when I forgive you, that takes your claws right out of me. So now you're not hurting me anymore. So it's easy said, and it's not easily done, because there's different dimensions to this. One thing is that you yourself is no more the issue in my life. You're not the one that I see when I look at this problem, but maybe it did cause something in my heart that needs a deeper work. I'll give you an example. I was told by somebody that was close to my life, in my growing up years, I was told that you will never amount to anything in life. Your brothers are smarter than you are. You will be the one that will never make it anywhere. And this person told me that I can kind of see who's going to get somewhere in life, and you're not the one. Okay, so I could allow that. And I know I turned aside after a while and cried, because I think what was said was somewhat accurate, because I had a learning disability when I was young. Mm-hmm. And so what it did was not necessarily put any kind of thing in me that I hated or that I held it against someone, but I left it there thinking that that's probably right. But I'm just not made like others, and I can't see into things like others, and I'm aware of that. My grades in school showed me that, and I was broken about it, but the Lord saw that part, and later on, when I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, totally restored all of that, and instilled wisdom in me that I never had. Mm-hmm. The wisdom that I have now is not from me; it's from above, and has totally changed me from that. And I think I probably, God in His mercy gave me the higher power of what I did not get in school, and so that I've excelled in everything I've done. Mm-hmm. And that was not the case in those early years. It was just the other way. So I think maybe some of it was I did not hold it against that person. And I don't know if that person would have never told me that. I don't think it would have affected my life in any other way. It was God's doing divinely. And maybe the hand of God was even in it. But the sexual abuse that I went through, that I wonder at times, because I preached this message on formed in iniquity. Because as I look back, and I look at, and I did some scientific study stuff that I've been looking at for close to a year on some of those things, and it'd be interesting to tell some people some things that I found out, that it is actually part of development. Mm-hmm. That when you're under a constant oppression, this will develop into your mind and there's certain parts of your mind will not develop as much when you're under oppression.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it has lasting effects. Now, where I believe is that the power of Jesus can touch those areas and can take those things away. And I'd like to leave that with the people for sure, that it can take the blood of Christ can take that away. And it doesn't necessarily just clean someone out immediately, but it helps dissolve. If I can call it an ulcer. It's an ulcer that affects your mind, affects your thinking, and anytime you look at possibilities, you see impossibilities, because there's an ulcer in you that when you think you need the word yes, it always says no. And those are things that I believe can come because of the way we were formed. Mm-hmm. The opposite of that is also people that think they can do everything. And then they run into situations based on something they've been told. They're always the best of the best of the best, is what they've been told all their lives. And next thing is they run into situations, and they end up basically getting nowhere in life. And it's something that happened in them. I see that.
Mm-hmm.
I see that. So we need to be very careful with how we allow God's word and work to work in us, to cleanse us constantly, cleanse my mind, clear my mind, Lord, clear my mind. Anything that comes into me from the negative words and the impossible things that man has spoken needs to be laid down and believed by what God has spoken. And that's not just something that happens through thinking patterns. That's something that happens through my confession, that, Lord, I lay this down before you, and I know that I do not have an ability. I know that I am weak in this, and I know that I'm, when I look at the weak, when I'm weak, then am I strong. The strength of God can come on you and can supersede and super intervene, however you want to call that, and make something out of you that you otherwise could have never achieved. And I contribute my success to that.
The grace of God coming in that manner, and being able to free you too, even
Mm-hmm.
from bitterness toward a person who would speak those things in your life.
Yeah.
I think forgiveness is a bit like a friend of ours that whenever they would get a check, they would put their tithe or whatever they're giving into a fund they called the Sunshine Fund. And so whenever a need came up or there was a need for an offering or something, they loved it because that had never actually entered their main account. It always was in this account. And I think forgiveness is a little bit like that Sunshine account. When we deal with that and our hearts have been freed from the claws, so to speak, and if that person ever came back and asked for forgiveness, there's that Sunshine account that's already in place to extend that.
There's things that happen to our lives at times that is set to ruin us. It's set to bring ruin to our lives, and you can harbor amongst those ruins the rest of your life if that's what you choose.
Kind of like the man living in the tombs, huh?
Yeah. You can be there trying and mourn over the ruins, or you can leave the ruins and start building something else. And the Bible speaks about that. And I guess the question I would have to the audience is to look at themselves. And when you look at defeat in your life and look at your past, look at anything that has happened, whether in business or any kind of failure, it's brought some ruin to you. Some of the big hopes you've had now are in ruins, and they're just laying there. You know what? By you walking around those ruins, there's not going to help you any. You're not going to raise the ruins. You have to start a new structure. You have to go somewhere else. Go where you're walking at. Don't go back there. Leave those ruins behind. I have kind of a beautiful message that the Lord is working in my heart concerning that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And that should be coming up here in a few weeks, maybe?
Yeah.
Good. Well, excellent. Well, we want to bring it to a close with that. Don't walk around in the ruins.
Yeah.
Let God restore and bring life into your life through this. So may God bless you. Have a good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Amen.